Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today I'm going to be starting a series where I teach you guys how to make a CRUD application using the MERN stack. So basically, if you don't know what it means, MERN is an acronym for MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. So basically, we're going to be creating a CRUD, which the front end will be using React, the back end will be using Node and Express, and for the database, we're going to be using MongoDB. So for those who don't know, if you're working with MongoDB, you can use a norm, which is like a way of us managing queries using objects. And the package, the library we're going to be using is Mongoose, which is probably the most famous MongoDB arm that exists. So basically, this is how our project is going to be. And this is probably going to be like a 3-part series. So I hope you guys will like the series. So we have here a project. It starts with a folder called CRUD, MERN. You can name it whatever you want. So we navigated towards that project and we are inside of VS Code. And inside of here, we're going to be creating 2 folders. So we're going to be creating a client folder and a server folder. So you can see now we have both of our folders right here. The client will have our React app and the server will have all of our Node server. So let's go into our React app for now and cd client. And inside of here, let's just write npx create react app and a dot. This will basically just create and set up our React application. And at the same time, let's go back to our directory and navigate towards our server. Because now we can just write npm init, and you can see that now inside of our server folder, there will be, let me open my server folder. If we click enter here, like a bunch of times, until these questions are over, you can see a package.json is installed, which basically shows all of our information from our backend. And now we're going to be using 2 different libraries in our backend. So in our node, we're going to be installing npm install express, and we're also going to be installing mongoose. So this should be it. And you can see that our front end just finished being set up. And now we have a React application in our client folder. And I think that should be it, right? Yeah, so we created our backend and a bit of our front end. So in this first video, instead of going directly through the front end, I'm just gonna set up the whole backend. Basically, I'm gonna set up Mongoose and I'm gonna teach you guys how to create a simple Express server and maybe like already configure the Atlas, which is the program we're gonna be using. So if you don't know what that is, you should download this. MongoDB Compass actually. So if you come here and write MongoDB Compass, you can see that it is this first link right here, and you can download because it's all fine. So let's come here, and the first thing we got to do is we got to set up our server. So let's go to our client server, to our server folder, sorry, and create a new file called index.js. For those who don't know, index.js is the entry point of our server. You can see here we call it, it's saying that the main file is index.js, so we can create all of our Express stuff inside of here. So I'm going to set up a simple Express server by writing const express equals to require express. So I just called the Express server, and I can directly come here, sorry I made a syntax error, can directly come here and create a variable called app and set it equal to express, therefore initializing our Express server. And at the bottom, I can just write app.listen and I can pass a port. So our backend will be on port localhost 3001. And then we can pass a function which will simply, wait, let me just do it again, which will simply console log if we have any, if the server is running. So server running on port 3001. Okay, so this is our simple Express server, and what we need to do now is we need to start setting up some middlewares. So basically we're going to be coming down here and writing app.use express.json. This will just allow us to receive information from the front end in JSON formats. So this is extremely necessary so we can get all of our information correctly. And now we should start importing the Mongoose library. So if we come here and we call const mongoose equal to require Mongoose. We can just come here to the bottom, and we now have a Mongoose object. Which we can just come here and write mongoose.connect. And inside of here, we gotta put a string, which I'm gonna show you guys how we get this string. And then we can pass a function, so not a function, an object, which contains one property. In our case, we're just gonna write use new URL parser, and we're gonna set it equal to true. You don't need to understand what this means, but it's just important that we do this for now. And I'm gonna show you guys what is the string or the connection URL that we're gonna pass inside of here. This will basically represent what MongoDB database we're trying to talk to. So in order to set up our whole database, we need to go to a website called MongoDB Atlas, and let's go here. And this is where we're going to be creating all of our MongoDB database. So you can like sign in. I'm not going to show you guys how to sign in, but create an account and sign in with that account. So I'm going to come back when I finished signing in. Okay, so basically when you create your account, you're going to be prompted with a page similar to this one or something a bit different, but you just navigate towards your projects page and you click on new project. Inside of here, we can put a name. So I'm just going to call it CRUD app, something like this. And then I create my project. I don't care about any of this. I just click create. And inside of here, I'm going to be setting up everything related to the tables and all this stuff. So I want to build a cluster. And basically a cluster is just a name for a database, and we're gonna choose the free version. So create a cluster. We can choose what provider. I'm gonna choose AWS, but Google Cloud and AWS are both as good. And you can choose the region. These are the free regions you can choose. So I'm just gonna choose this one. So it's on the East Coast, which is similar to where I am. And let me see, the cluster tier, it's already the MO sandbox. So basically, this is the free version. You can increase if you want, but these are the storage you can have and all the kind of stuff. So all this stuff are okay. You can change the cluster name. I'm going to change this to CRUD and create cluster. So now that we have our cluster, we now have a bunch of information about it. So we can add a new user. So we can come here to database access, and we can add a database user. This is important because this is the kind of stuff we're going to be using, and there are different things you can put in here. For example, you would need to put a password. So basically, I'm going to be showing you guys I'm not going to show you guys authenticating the password, because differently from how I used to do with like MySQL or different databases, I can't show you this password because although I'm going to be setting it up in our project, I'm not going to be showing what the password is. So I'm going to set up everything here, and you can do it together, and I'll come back when I finish it. Okay guys, I just created my password and my user. It's all over here, and the username I chose is new user. You can choose whatever you want, but again, it's not that important for now. And now what we need to do is we need to go to network access, and we gotta add IP address because it's gonna recognize what is our IP address. And I'm just gonna click on add current IP address, because it's gonna get my IP address and it's gonna basically recognize it so that our IP can access our database, and then we can just confirm. Okay, so since we just finished our network access, we can just go to clusters, and inside of here, if this is finished creating, which is not, then we will be able to receive our link, and we can just directly add that to our file. So I'm just gonna wait to see when the cluster is created, and I'm gonna come back when it's finished. Okay guys, so basically our cluster just finished creating, and we can come here and click on connect, and let's click on connect using MongoDB Compass because it is what we're going to be using. And we can just come here and copy this, and then open MongoDB Compass, which is the program I told you guys to download. And inside of here, we're going to be basically connecting to this cluster, and now we will be able to use this to visualize all of our databases. So let's paste this here, click connect, and this is just a test. It's saying password must be a string. And by the way, I just realized that it doesn't really matter if I tell you guys my password. The password I used is password12345, and if I click connect, it should work. Let's see if it works. Yeah, so we just connected to our cluster, and you can see that there's two databases. We're gonna create a new one over here. So we can just click create database, and inside of here we can just give it a name. So let's basically call it, since we're doing a CRUD application, let's just create an application in which you can, let me think, maybe an application where you can just add food. So basically it's just a list of all the foods that you like the most. So you can just keep adding them. And since we're doing a CRUD application, we will be able to create new, like insert food into the database, delete the food into like from the database, and update it, and also read it. So let's call this database food. I just figured it out. Basically, we shouldn't have it capitalized. We just have the name food, and we can click on create database. Invalid namespace. Oh, I should have included a collection name. So this is just the name of the table. So in our table, we're gonna create a table called food data. This is the name of the table, right? Food data. And create database, you can see that now we created a database called food, and there's a table or collection called food data. But there's no data inside of here, and we're gonna be creating schemas so that we can put that into our database through our code with Mongoose. So after this, since we just created everything, we can just copy our connection. So let's come here to this, and let's close this. And instead of clicking on connect with MongoDB Compass, we can just click on connect with our application. So we can just copy this, and this string that we just copied is a little bit different because now we can just change this to the password we have. In my case, it's password 12345, and we can also change the DB name to the name of the database we created. In our case, it's called food. So if we save this, it should create a connection that is working, but in order to see that, we're going to create some schemas. So in order to create a schema, which is the table or like the way we're gonna see our information, so all the different columns, and I say column like with quotes because it's not really, since it's a non-relational database, we're just gonna have different data types that we can assert some elements, so some values. And so in order to do that, we can just come here and create a folder called models, and inside of here, we can create different files. So I'm going to create a file called food.js, and actually let me capitalize it, food.js. And inside of here, we're going to create all of our schemas. So let me require Mongoose, so equals require Mongoose, and inside of here, we can just write const food schema equal to new mongoose.schema, and we can pass in an object inside of here. Just like if you've watched my video on SQLize, which is a norm for any relational databases, we can define all of our schema inside of here by just writing the column names. So for example, in our database, we want to have the following columns and the following information represented. The food name, so the food name, which is going to be of type string, and let's also pass if it's required. So basically, I'll say that it is required, and we should also pass lowercase. No, this shouldn't really matter. Let's just say it is a food name of type string, and it is required. Let's also, let me think, what else can we add into our database of food? Let's say, how many days ago I ate this food, right? Days since I ate. This isn't a good name, but yeah, let's just say days since I ate. The type of this obviously is a integer or a number. Let me see. I always confuse with data types. So it's a number actually, and it's required to add this to the database. So I can just say true. So after we finish creating our schema, we need to pass it to a model in Mongoose so that we can basically just create it in our database itself. So this is how it's going to create the schema if it doesn't exist. So we can come here to the bottom and just write const food equals to mongoose.model, and we can pass the name of the collection or the table and call it food data. This is how I'm going to call it. And we can come here and just pass the schema, so food schema. And now that we have this, we can simply just module.exports equal to food. So whenever we want to access our food object, which is basically how we're going to make all of our CRUD statements, how we're going to insert data into the database, or how we're going to retrieve it, then we can just access this file and send this variable through the module.exports. So now that we have this, we can just come here to our front end, and for example, I'm going to come here and create a route called app.get. And in this is going to be the simple slash route, and inside of here I can just pass a require and a response. And this basically means that inside of here, I'm just going to, whenever someone reaches this route, I simply just want to insert something into the database. And in order to reach this, I can just come here and import the file. So const food, let me call it food model equals to require. And I'm going to reach for the models and the food file. So this is representing this. So basically, I also need to make this an asynchronous function. So because we're going to be making each step individually. So in order to create an element into the database, I can just come here and write const food equals to new food model dot not dot actually, let me just pass the value. So I'm just going to create a new food model, and the data I'm going to be passing here is an object, and in this object I gotta represent both of these values. So I gotta pass a food name and a day since I ate. So let me come here and write food name, and for now I just want to insert a food which has the name of apple, and the amount of days since I ate this, let me pass 3. So I'm inserting this data into the database. This is what I basically am saying. So in the bottom here, I can try and catch. So you should try and catch. This is basically a statement where we try to do something. If it doesn't work, we catch whatever error there is. So let's pass it like this. And if there's an error, I just want to console.log the error. If there isn't any error, I just want to await food.save. And food.save is exactly where we do this, because here we're just creating a variable called food, which basically represents an instance of creating a variable, an element in the database. And when we pass food.save, we're just saying the database to save this information into their collection. So if we save this, let me see if this works, because I haven't actually tested this. So let's come here into our server and write node index.js. This is how we run our server. You can see that it says that it's running on port 3001, and then it says a bunch of stuff that basically represents all of the information from our MongoDB server. So if we come here to localhost 3001 and it's on the app.get, let's see what happens, right? So it's trying to run it. If there's an error, we should see a console log, but it's waiting for the localhost to run. Let's go to our Compass and let's refresh this to see if anything was created. So nothing was created here. Sorry, I just realized that my video got cut. Basically what happened is my data wasn't appearing in the MongoDB Compass database. So what I did is I just went to the food.js file, and I'll show you guys how to fix the error. So basically, if you come here to mongoose.model and you just let it be food, you can just, I made some changes because there was some error occurring. I can just stop this, run this again. Now it created everything. And if we refresh our page right here, you can see it says inserted data. And I can come here and I click on this button to refresh. And you can see that now there was something that appeared in our database. This is our collection that we just created. And you can see that there's already an object inside of it. This is basically what we just inserted here. So whenever I refresh this, it will insert another element. So refresh, you can see there's going to be another element. This is an apple with days since I ate equal to 3. So that means that our database is working. And this is the simple model of how you do this. I'm thinking about leaving the code in the description so you guys can literally see everything. And I hope that this wasn't as confusing. On the next video, I'm going to be working on the React part of stuff. I'm going to create the simple UI where you're going to be using inputs and you're going to be clicking on buttons so that if you want to insert something into your database, you're going to click the button to insert and input stuff from the front end to the back end. So keep around to see that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like this series. And if you like this series, please leave a comment down below. Like this video, subscribe if you want to see more of the channel. And I see you guys next time.